Students, today we're going to talk about cross-referencing, and then later on I'm going to fully explain your homework assignments. So I hope you enjoy this in lieu of our lecture on Wednesday. So let's talk about cross-referencing. Cross-referencing is really done when the original record may be asked for by a name other than it's how you would originally file it. There are many different reasons for cross-referencing, and what we're going to do for our records management class is we're going to provide you with some generally accepted rules for cross-referencing based upon what you've learned in the chapter. So when you're actually doing a cross-reference, what you're going to do is you're going to make a copy of the record, or some organizations have an actual cross-reference sheet. The cross-reference sheet or the copy will show the name in a form other than what's used on the original record. And what that means is it's actually going to show the cross-reference as it should be coded. And we'll go over how some of these examples are done. It's also going to indicate the storage location of the original record. So for instance, if I have a business name that might also be known as a different business name. ABC Company is also known as Acme Company for whatever reason. So most people ask for it by ABC Company. That's the original record. But under Acme Company, where maybe somebody who has known that company in the past and it has switched names or something like that, you'll have a copy of the original or a cross-reference sheet where Acme Company is actually coded in the order. Because it's a business name, we apply Rule 1B, and we code it as written and file it as written. And then you'll pull that out and it'll say C, and then it will say ABC Company. So we know where the original record is actually stored. Cross-referencing should be done with discretion. So if you have too many cross-references, obviously that's going to overcrowd your files. It's also going to be confusing for somebody. They're not quite sure where something is, and it's easy to make mistakes where a cross-reference is missed if you have too many places where you need a cross-reference. It also takes time to prepare these and file them, so it should be really used with discretion. Now we're going to go over some examples of the cross-references that pertain to this chapter. And again, each chapter we will build upon our cross-reference knowledge. So the first one has to do with personal names. And the first example of when you'd need a cross-reference is when you have a personal name that's unusual. For instance, a foreign-sounding name in the United States, or just a very unique name, or names that are easily confused. And what that means is typically they have a first and a last name where either one of those could be switched. So in this example, this person's name is David Charles. And David could be his first name, David could be his last name, and the same with Charles. Those are both first names, so people might confuse which one is his first name and which one is his last name. So because his real name is David Charles, we code it as we just stated, where David is the key unit and Charles is unit 2. We apply Rule 1A there. The cross-reference is going to be where Charles is actually the key unit and David is unit 2. That's how the cross-reference is coded. You come up with a cross-reference and then you code it applying the same rules you do for any other record. That record then also contains the word C. David Charles, which is actually the original record. So there's just that one extra step in cross-referencing. Well, kind of two. The first step is identifying that a record needs a cross-reference. The second step after you code it and file it is to put that C, the words SEE, and then the original location of the original record. Another reason to make a cross-reference for personal names is hyphenated surnames. So that's their last name, and oftentimes that happens for married women. They hyphenate instead of taking on their husband's last name. So in this example, we have someone named Wendy Reardon Bruss, and we know normally with hyphenation that is considered punctuation, and we would simply remove it. So Reardon Bruss, this example should actually have removed that hyphen. That because that's her last name, that's the key unit, and then Wendy is unit 2. However, some people might know Wendy just by her married name. And in that instance, they might ask for the BRUS file. So in this case, we're going to separate those two names and make BRUS the last part of that hyphen as the key unit, then Wendy as unit 2, and then the last filing segment would be the first part of that hyphenation. But again, we have the original location of her actual record. Two other reasons for personal names to create a cross-reference are alternate names. So in this example, we have a person named Star Michelle. They're also known as Starlinski Michelle. Excuse me, Michelle Starlinski, I apologize. So it's just simply an alternate name for this person, and we need to put a cross-reference according to that. The last reason for personal names are similar last names. So some people may confuse a last name with another, and it may have different kind of generally accepted spellings. So what some companies choose to do is they put a whole section of last names that can be spelled differently, and then they have where the files might be filed in their original location. So in this example, the last name is Brown, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to one particular record. It pertains to a series of records. I'm not going to ask you to create a cross-reference like this, but know that it's a way of people looking at different files and seeing that Brown is also under Brown with an E, Braun, and Braun with an AW in the middle instead of AU. Business names. The most widely used area of cross-references with business names is when there's compound names or more than one name in the business name. So people who are business partners, which are a lot of law firms and insurance agencies, things like that, they have a name that they officially go by, which is all of the names that they have, but there's a certain order that's official. And that's going to go on the official coded filing segment. However, it may be asked for by the other people's names. So in the example we see here, it's Jarvis Rasmussen and Sheridan Antiques. So technically this is going to be filed under the J's and in that order, but someone may ask for it under Rasmussen and someone may ask for it under Sheridan. So we need to get those two names in the front of the cross-reference file so that if someone asks for the Rasmussen file or the Sheridan file, we can see that it's actually filed under its official name, which is Jarvis, Rasmussen, and Sheridan. So in this instance, you'll see that it needs two separate cross-references. The first cross-reference is going to be for that the second person in the list, which is Rasmussen. And then you just keep going in order. So the next name in that filing segment is actually Sheridan. So that's the name that's going to be Unit 2. Then you put the and wherever it needs to go. If you have more than 3 names, you kind of have to extrapolate on this knowledge. So Sheridan again is going to be Unit 2, the word and is Unit 3, and then we go back to the beginning name, which is Jarvis, which is Unit 4, and then we have the last part of that filing segment is antiques, which is the word or series of words that comes after the listed names. And then in the Sheridan example, you'll see Sheridan comes first, and we kind of go back to the beginning again, Jarvis and Rasmussen. It's difficult to remember the order that these are coded in when you're kind of jumbling up the names, but I encourage you to look back at this example, look back at the examples in your book for reference when you need to code these. Another reason, and the last reason for a cross-reference, are business names. And those are names with abbreviations or acronyms. So MAD is a really good example of that, where many, many people are going to ask for the MAD file. On their letterhead is MAD, so it's coded with MAD. We learned that in our rules in Chapter 2, where we don't spell out the acronyms, we leave them as is. But the cross-reference is going to spell it out. So in this instance, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is going to be the cross-reference. We're going to code it accordingly, and then we're going to put CMAD, and that will indicate the original location of that record. That sums up cross-references, and in another YouTube video, I will be explaining the homework.